Hi, my name's Stephen Gans, and this is session number 6 in our series on being born again. And this one I've entitled God's Love and Our New Birth. I'm going to use this verse to describe God's love. That's John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. For God so loved the world is how this verse starts off. Why did God love the world so much? It started in God's heart before the beginning. God loved the world because he created us in his image to share his life, rule with him. He breathed his life into us at our creation. This was always in God's heart, even before he made the world, to have a people who would join with him in ruling and reigning, and who would share love with him back and forth. The love and the trust that God showed us was meant to bind us together with God and one another so that we could represent his will on the earth. But humanity broke that trust, spurned his love, and went its own way. They determined to live life without God's guidance. Even so, God had no plan B. Because of his love, he pursued us to restore the relationship he had intended from the beginning. The second part of that verse says that God gave his one and only Son. In Romans 5:8, Paul writes, God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. God gave his Son over to death so that we could be free from the just penalty from turning away from God in the Garden of Eden and afterwards. When Adam and Eve ate from the forbidden tree, they did it because they trusted in their own judgment rather than God's. They wouldn't have been deceived if they had trusted God, but they decided that their own judgment was the one to follow. And that's how come they became deceived. And this has been humanity's problem ever since. This separation from God that came from following our own ways instead of following God, this separation from God, who is himself life, resulted in death. Jesus offered himself to die in our place. He took the responsibility for all humanity's sin. As our head and representative, he served our sentence, dying once for all the death humanity received through their self-will. I'm going to tell you a story of what it means that Jesus took responsibility for all humanity's sin. Clearly, he has never sinned. It never did and never will. But as our representative and as our head, he took responsibility for everything humanity had ever done. And this is how he did it. When I was a young man, I hit a baseball out in the street. And I went over to third base and went on a line right into our neighbor's picture window that overlooked the street. It smashed that window to small pieces, but I hit the ball really hard. And it didn't stop there. And then it went right through the living room and crashed into our neighbor's color TV set. It completely destroyed that. And in that day, that we would probably have to pay 2 to 3 months of wages to buy a color TV set. They were very, very expensive. There was no way that me, as a 10 or 11-year-old boy, would ever have enough money or wherewithal to be able to make it right with our neighbor. But my father went over, paid for the TV set, and paid for the window to be repaired. And he made it right for me with my neighbor. He took responsibility for what I did with my neighbor and made it right. This is what Jesus did for you and for me. He took our responsibility, paid what we couldn't pay, that is our death, and he made it right. Because of this, we now have the grace given to us that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. Faith in Jesus restored what was lost in Eden, eternal life with God. When we believe in Jesus, we open our hearts by trust to receive God's love, and our relationship with Him is restored. Through that faith, His love becomes personal and real to us. Believing in Jesus is how we come to know God, not just to know about Him, but to share life with Him again. In John 17:3, it reads, "Now this is eternal life, that they may know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom you sent." May we all believe in Jesus and participate in His life and get to really know His love for us, which He had intended it right at the very beginning, and so we can share in His life together. God bless you.